Hey, this is JJan11 back with another video, this time in the Ultra League Premier Cup. I've been running Shadow Dragonite, Swampert, and Magnezone for my team. You can run any of them with shadows or any of them without shadows, but I do like the extra Dragon Breath pressure that Dragonite has with the shadow bonus. Let's get right into the battles. First, we got Dragonite into Lapras. So this is a bad situation. We always safe switch Swampert, and we draw out the Venusaur. So Swampert does a little better than Magnezone, even in its worst matchups, because Magnezone basically ends up as a farm for its hard counters a lot of times, and that energy is usually threatening. So we always throw the Earthquake on Venusaur. If we make the switch, or if they're slightly slow on the switch, we can get the 2 Earthquakes, which we'll get a shield, and we got almost all of the health. And we will get hit by a move on Dragonite, unfortunately, but it's pretty useless considering Lapras is just going to come back in. So this is a situation where we basically need Magnezone to finish. And so we get a head start on the energy on Magnezone, so we can possibly clear a debuff later. So he still has the Venusaur alive, unfortunately. It'd be nice to have that if we could have tapped it down, but he doesn't throw, which is very smart, but he also doesn't shield, which was not as smart. So it's basically, he has to make a call because I'm, coming up on 2 of the moves. So we throw the energy just to be safe. Oh, and then we find out he has a 3rd Pokemon. Sometimes you forget when that happens. But we didn't switch out in time on Magnezone. We could have had another Wild Charge. So we lead into Togekiss again. So we're not going to, or a bad lead, I should say again. So we're not going to throw immediately because sometimes they'll just chip and then bring in a harder counter. So this is what happens here. He brings in Shadow Glade, which can confusion us down. So he doesn't shield because he knows it's probably going to be a Hydro Cannon, but I did have the energy for an Earthquake that would have KO'd. So it's actually looking okay now that we got 2 shields. So why I'm showing some of these battles is, if you have a good team, you have to be able to overcome what look like bad situations. So, like, you can't just, rely on winning lead every game and winning switch every game. You got to have some sort of play if, things don't go your way. So Escavalier is also worrisome in the back because Magnezone takes a lot of damage. And so I've played this matchup a lot. I think I need the Mirror Shot and the Wild Charge. And what that also does is it stalls out the switch clock a little longer so I can hopefully be able to get to move on Togekiss. And so he actually, I think this is a mistake for him to throw because it allows me to switch. And so I'm able to clear my debuff, and that allows me to get the last spark I need for the Wild Charge. He was going for the boost, but it allowed me to be able to switch out. And that's a good game. Next situation, Togekiss again. So always switch Swampert, and then this is an interesting counter switch because Swampert can definitely win in a decent number of shielding situations. And he's got no energy on Togekiss, so Magnezone in the back can get to a move and not can pretty much get the 2 moves and not have to worry about anything if it comes down to that. So interesting that he shields that first Hydro Cannon. I always try to build up to a potential Earthquake, and we actually get both shields here, so this means that we can Earthquake for the KO here. And so we turn this situation into a Togekiss lead, into winning switch back again. And so he's going to get a couple charms with Togekiss, but I should still be able to beat it to the move. He's actually going to bring in Glade, which is very scary, but we actually are able to get to another Hydro Cannon. And so now it's looking really good. We got a few confusions off, but we have Magnezone in the back if they try to switch on us. So he does switch, and we know he just threw a close combat, so we can build up a little bit extra. I didn't get quite the 2 wild charges, but he's got to be really low on energy on Glade to be able to finish off the game. And he quits. Next game, Abomasnow. So this is actually the worst possible lead. I still switch in Swampert even though I'm running Earthquake. I still bluff that I have a Sludge Wave. Obviously, if he had Sludge Wave, it would be very advantageous in this situation. It wouldn't be quite as bad, but I like Earthquake for the closing power in a lot of games. So interesting that he actually switches out of the matchup, because Abomasnow does pretty well in the matchup, assuming you don't get hit by a Sludge Wave. So I'm able to get 3 Hydro Cannons off on the Machamp. So I was able to get both shields, which is a decent situation. But this is a game where you got to hope that Magnezone can put in work. So like Abomasnow is a big core breaker for this team, but yeah, sometimes the Magnezone can be a core breaker for other teams. And so he brings in Driftblim. This is still a scary situation, because if I get debuffed, then the Abomasnow will be able to do a lot more work. I think he should have went for the Shadow Ball, or at least gone up for it, but the Wild Charge still KOs. And so the goal here is to be able to switch out with Magnezone to clear a debuff. And that's why I try to keep Dragonite alive a lot of times, is to be able to clear a debuff in the back. So sometimes, like if you see your lead is just going to get farmed down and doesn't really serve a lot of purpose, I'll still switch out. Since I'm going to end up being switch locked anyway a lot of times. And so I was able to clear the debuff and then get to this Mirror Shot, which will KO or get very close to KOing. It did end up KOing. I cut it off a little early. I promise that was a win. Magnezone versus Dragonite, both shadows. So this is a scary situation where Mirror Shots will end up chunking if the Magnezone actually goes for them. So I have Swampert to come in case they do throw a Wild Charge, but he actually switches and does not go for the Wild Charge. So Glade is a very tough switch-in for this team, because it can one-shot Swampert with the Leaf Blades and then one-shot Magnezone with the close combats. But we can also put a ton of pressure on the Glade too, because it's very squishy, and Swampert and Magnezone's moves both hurt a lot. So he actually lets the Glade go, and because he's got Venusaur in the back, this is the Jonkis line with different shadows, or an extra shadow on Magnezone. But it's also, Venusaur in the back is very tough for this team as well. So usually it takes a team effort to take out Venusaur if it is not the lead. So he throws the Wild Charge, and I'm able to Mirror Shot and Spark down. And then the plan is to Wild Charge, since it actually does more damage per energy than the Mirror Shot. So fortunately, that was actually a CMP tie. Unfortunately, he undercharged that. But we actually catch the move on Swampert. So we're able to waste a ton of energy. And then Dragonite's pretty close to a move. And so we're able to win that game just on a catch. Next game, we'll see the Galvantula lead. I've started to see a lot more of those in Season 6 once the XLs came about. Unfortunately, I don't have great access to Joltik candy, so I'm not likely to build one anytime soon. But it's interesting that he swapped out, since it's a fairly neutral matchup that Galvantula normally should be able to take care of. If like if Dragonite doesn't shield, like a Discharge is basically in a KO. So I actually save the Dragonite and catch the move on Swampert. Unfortunately, this is a Lapras. So Swampert does not have a great time in this matchup, but I was able to get a decent amount of energy. And then at least I have Magnezone for this. But unfortunately, he's able to get a decent farm out of that. So this is still a very scary situation. Those Shadow Surfs do a lot. So Joltik normally wins CMP against Dragonite, but I had some extra energy. I probably could have got to 2 Dragon Claws there. I was just going for the KO there. So I know at this point I probably need to get to 2 Wild Charges. I still have a shield, fortunately. Or possibly a Mirror Shot might be enough at this point. Might take a little bit. I go for the Wild Charge because I'm debuffed. Then I know Lapras is pretty close to a move, but I was able to just get the Wild Charge off in time. Going against Pokemon JPA. I'm assuming that person's from Japan. Another Galvantula lead. So a lot of times I see Galvantula paired with Skarmory. Just, some people are able to grind harder than others or live in more fortunate spots. So they like to, flex their XLs, and those are both pretty good ones. So he actually goes for the lunge here. That was an interesting play to lunge, since Discharge would pretty much KO. So I'm going in Swampert. It seems very weird because I'm expecting like a Charizard, or not a Charizard, but a Skarmory in the back. And so it's interesting that he Icy Winded there. I noticed that he lunged on the Dragonite earlier, so he's just going for all these baits and debuffs. This time he actually Shadow Balls and KOs. The Galvantula has a move since I threw earlier on the CMP, or what would have been CMP. He lunges, but I can still clear, but he's not particularly close to a move. So Mirror Shot will KO, and then I still have 2 shields, so it's looking pretty good. So it's Clefable. This is like the worst thing to see when you have 2 shields up is a Charmer. It's like, man, I should have shielded something. But he actually baited all the other times other than that last Shadow Ball. So this is a scary situation where I need... Wild Charge is more energy efficient, but I try to go for the bait since I didn't think I would be able to get to both. It's pretty risky. Like if I threw that first Wild Charge, if like a Charm sneaks through and I get KO'd, but I was able to get the bait and then get the Wild Charge for the win. So Dragonite into Ampharos. This is another situation where it's somewhat neutral, but I have a pretty hard response to it in the back with Swampert, so I don't normally shield a bunch of times. So he actually throws the second one. I don't think he needed to throw it. But, you know, looking at that Ampharos, this is just a giant Swampert farm. So this is pretty useful against just about everything in the meta if I'm able to get a full Swampert going. So it's Venusaur, which is Swampert's worst nightmare outside of a Razor Leafer, which you don't actually see in this league. Fortunately, he lets the Earthquake go through, and so Swampert has done a pretty good job. And then Charizard comes in. Fire Spin is the worst one to see for Magnezone, but the Venusaur is in Hydro Cannon range if it comes to that. So I was thinking at that point I need to get to 2 Hydros on Swampert, but he actually doesn't end up throwing on Magnezone despite having a move. So this is a scary situation, having to Mud Shot down a Venusaur. But we basically tag team that Venusaur. It didn't have anywhere to, or didn't get any time to really get going by pressuring that on the switch with Magnezone. So Umbreon's another XL that a lot of people have been seeing in this season. It's very bulky, which is pretty annoying to deal with because this team is somewhat glassy. It's not, I mean, there's definitely glassier stuff, but relative to something like Umbreon, this is very, very bulky. And so he's got another XL, is an Alolan Ninetales. I still don't have one built even in Great League, but it now has Weather Ball Ice, which allows it to get to moves very quickly, but they're not particularly threatening. As you can see that Swampert took that one okay. I noticed that I got a shield earlier, so I'm thinking I don't have to shield this to get possibly another shield or a KO. And so I just make it to the Hydro Cannon, and he's got to go down 2 shields if he wants to maintain that alignment, which he does. And I have a pretty good response to that in a Magnezone. It's fortunate that he throws energy onto this. So by throwing that move and then Magnezone throwing this move, I'm just stalling out the switch clock, which is one of the most important things to keep track of when you're running a debuff move like Wild Charge, or if you're running close combat or anything similar to that, is that I'm pretty much free to throw a Wild Charge and then, be able to switch out pretty soon. A lot of good players will try to CMP when they think like something like Magnezone will throw a move. So that way they can get their charge move while Magnezone is debuffed. I don't take any chances. I throw the Mirror Shot, and then I have a nice clear right there. And so then I know that Wild Charge does more, but I'm trying to get to multiple moves, so hopefully I can get a debuff on the Mirror Shot. And I am able to get the debuff there, which really helps out. Since I'm not sure if Magnezone is going to be able to finish this one out, but I still have Dragonite with some health. Yeah, the charm went through. And then he throws a move, which is, I think, a mistake, but it doesn't really matter at this point in the game. Normally, you wouldn't throw any charge moves unless you think you can get to enough moves to where you would throw in when shields are down. So Dragonite into Obstagoon. This is a fairly neutral matchup, but Dragonite normally wins the one shield, at least the Shadow variant. The non-Shadow Obstagoon wins the one, but you don't. But even in like the 0/1 shield, like Obstagoon's basically dead and leaves with a Night Slash. So this game, he plays out the 0/1 on his side, so I'm not particularly happy about going down a shield, particularly when Glade is out here. Like, this is one of the worst case situations to have Glade with a shield advantage. Because, as I mentioned earlier, Glade can one-shot both of the 2 mons in the back. So I pretty much have to catch a move to have any chance in this game. And so I try to time it when I think they'll throw the Leaf Blade, and so fortunately I was able to catch it. But we still don't know what's in the back. And so at this point, I try to undercharge the Wild Charge, but it's not enough. I was trying to be able to Mud Shot down afterward with Swampert, but it didn't quite work. And then I had the Mirror Shot, but not quite the Wild Charge. Yeah, that was an interesting situation to be in. That was a close finish there, and thanks for watching, guys.